Welcome to Business Talk, presented in collaboration with the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, from the heart of southeastern Ohio at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of Rio Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dengel. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Today we have a really good show. It's going to be talking about something I know very little about. You know, Jason. I'm not afraid to say that I'm a city boy, and in a city boy, I like to look out my window and see the whites of my neighbor's eyes. And on the same token, you're a country boy. You live out in the farm, correct?
I do live on a farm, but I was raised in the city.
Oh, were you? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
But I bet you're the type of person that would squash this individual's business.
Well, after we had a very nice lunch, and he was telling some unique things about what to do, and that being honeybees, and how it's been a hobby of his that keeps on growing and growing, and it's really neat. Some of the things that he's understanding and learning about honeybees. And
this close relationship, right?
Yes, he is. He happens to be my nephew, Kevin Dengel. Kevin comes from Gahanna in Ohio, and Kevin has had a wide variety of different things that he's been involved with since he's been very young. As a matter of fact, he had the opportunity to dot the I while he was going through Ohio State University in their marching band.
That puts him very high on my list.
Yeah, I know. You and I are both going to get his autograph before he leaves, etc. But it's interesting, 50 years prior to that, I had another cousin that dotted the I. So we told.
So what happened to you, Pat?
They won't let me near musical instruments.
Okay.
All they do is give me a kazoo and say, go out in the field and play. So, but anyway, today we're going to talk about honeybees, and you probably know a lot about honeybees.
It's a sticky topic.
Sort of stabs you right in the heart, you know, the kind of thing. But
stings you.
It stings me. See that? Don't know that much about honeybees. But anyway, I want to welcome Kevin Dengel. Kevin is a teacher at the Gahanna Lincoln High School. And we'll find out what he teaches.
Sure.
But more importantly, he has a number of different hives at his house. So welcome,
Yes,
Kevin.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Born and raised in Gahanna, which is an eastern suburb of Columbus. Went to Gahanna Lincoln High School, went to Ohio State University, taught outside of Chicago for a couple of years, and then my former teacher came back, or retired, and I came back and assumed her teaching position. And the program has grown there. I teach orchestra, 6th through 12th grade, so violin, viola, cello, and bass, and have a beautiful wife, Megan, and two little boys.
Cute little boys, and
Cute little boys.
And yes, Megan is a sweetheart.
She is.
You were lucky to find her.
Yes.
Glad. So how did you get involved with bees?
So my first teaching position was in Barrington, Illinois, which is a northeast suburb of Chicago, and one of my coworkers had a few hives in his backyard, and I thought, who does this? This is strange to have one bees and two bees in a populated area. And then that just kind of piqued my interest, and I started reading lots of books, and that turned into reading more and more and more, and finally convinced my family, let's do this. And then it just kind of kept growing from then.
So it's my understanding that you got one hive.
I got one hive initially. We built our own equipment. My dad helped, and now we have 4, and we're expanding into an area in Black Lake, which is even further east.
Fantastic. Jason, on your farm, do you have hives? Because I know that you grow some
No.
stuff.
No, I have no beehives.
No beehives?
There are some people in the county that do produce honey, and they have their hives. So,
And
it's growing in popularity.
I know that honeybees are extremely important for certain kinds of crops. And that's about all I know.
And we've had some problems recently with survival rates, haven't we?
Yes, so there's a few things that are thought to be a factor in that. Both there are various mites, some pesticides, and like neonicotinoids that are
What is it again?
neonicotinoids. So they are, they broadcast them across fields, and that has been found to kind of disorient bees and make them sick. So,
So there was a question that came up. Someone was alluding to the fact that there was electronic microwave emissions and cell phones, and that was doing away with the population. Is that true or not?
from what I've read, it was a theory, but things are gravitating more to this class of pesticide and chemical. So, but yeah, there are a lot more people taking up beekeeping. I know that the Central Ohio Beekeepers Association, and there are associations across the state, they had 140 people enroll in their beginning beekeeper course. So people with no other experience beekeeping before latching on, and it started as a hobby for me, but it's as labor intensive and expensive as you want to make it. You can build your own equipment, or you can buy it, and either be very hands-on or hands-off, and it's very, very rewarding. I did it initially just to help, because I had heard lots about the honeybee population, and that's a very important thing for more people to do.
So Jason on his farm has a number of different things that he does. Would it be beneficial for Jason to get a beehive?
Definitely. It helps not only the local kind of ecosystem, but he'd be able to get some honey and kind of, on that personal level. But a lot of people just leave those hives alone, and it'll definitely help the crops.
So I know honey is a product. What else is a product from bees?
We have, so I just brought a small cutout of this. This is foundation, and this is what beekeepers use to kind of help bees build out the comb. You don't have to use this. You can just use an empty frame that they'll build their own, but within that comb, they can put, which is made out of beeswax, they can put honey or pollen. There are about 4 or 5 different products. So here is a beeswax candle that I made from some beeswax in my hive. And this is a very kind of, this is a hot commodity because it takes about 8 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of beeswax. So this was just from cappings that when I took honey out, I boiled this down. So this is about 8 frames of cappings worth for me. Honey, of course, and this is for you, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
From my hive, and the taste of honey will be dependent on what's around and what season it is. There is stuff called propolis. There's a photo, it looks like sticky goo. It's one of my last couple of slides. But that is there's some research that shows that it's very good with antibacterial, antiviral properties, but that's used as kind of bee glue. But I read something at one point where they were trying to see the impact of that on individuals with AIDS, and if that helps that deter that virus in their bodies. But that's basically, they use that to close up holes and cracks in the hive, but that's being used more and more. There are actually things called, propolis frames that bees will build that on, and then beekeepers will sell that. And also there's pollen. And pollen is the protein source for the bees. It's kind of neat when you open a hive. One of my frames, the entire bottom box is full of pollen, and each cell is a different color for each of the different flowers that they've gone to. And that's used a lot in kind of the health food industry. Bee pollen is, you can get bottles of that.
So I thought the bees would ingest the pollen
They do.
and then
So the-
sort of regurgitate.
Yeah, so when bees go out into the field and forage, they bring it back, and they will actually regurgitate that to another bee in the hive, and they'll take that to a cell.
Huh.
And the forager will go back out and find more. But the honey is the carbohydrate. I think the stat is one honeybee can fly around the world on a teaspoon of honey.
Huh.
So it's a huge power source for them. And then that honey helps to encourage the queen to start laying eggs. But the pollen is what bees eat for kind of health. That has a lot of their minerals and amino acids and all of that.
So when they come into the hive, the pollen, some of the pollen drops down. Is that right?
Yes, so
Okay.
there's a photo here. They put it on their back legs, and these are called pollen baskets.
So the honey there that you have canned in the jar,
Yes.
is that straight out of the hive, or is
That
it?
is straight out of the hive, and it's just put through a double strainer that we have in our kitchen.
So there's no real processing.
No.
It's very pure.
This would be called raw honey, and so most of what you get in stores is filtered and other processes done to it. So it's best to get local raw honey.
So what's the difference?
What's the difference?
Yes.
This has pollen in it,
Okay.
and so
Yeah,
when you
it's
get-
almost crystal clear.
yeah. So when you get raw honey, it just has more of the natural stuff in it. This is only like I said, gone through a double strainer, so kind of not quite a sieve, but something very similar, just to get the beeswax out. Where other larger companies would put it through multiple filters to eradicate a lot of the other healthy things in there. It's been said that if you eat local honey, it'll help with your allergies because they're just minute amount of pollen, and it helps your body build up an immunity to that, and that won't necessarily happen with the other.
So if you strain this, the beeswax is the byproduct of what you strained out.
Correct. So this was made
Okay.
with what was taken with that.
And so then I'm assuming you melt that again.
Melt that, and you have to filter it a little bit more.
Okay.
And I just saw a couple YouTube videos. That's actually my first candle I've made from that. But you actually can filter it through a paper towel, and it takes all the impurities out. And so that's just a pure beeswax candle.
Huh.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it
YouTube
sounds
is
like it.
a great resource.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I noticed you also have a book for dummies,
Oh.
beekeeping.
This was one of the first beekeeping books I read. I got at the library, and it's I think one of the
It's still
It
due.
is it's still appropriate. And beekeeping for dummies, and it goes through a lot of just the very basic things that you need to know when you're starting. It has seasonal how-tos and checklists, and a very good introductory book. Things just get more complex from that, but a very good overview of the most important things that you need to start and kind of understand what's going on in the hive.
So how much honey and beeswax is produced from an average hive?
It really all depends on kind of genetics and what's around. I know that their brother Adam, who came up with this breed of bee called the Buckfast bee in England, would get 150 some pounds of honey per hive.
And that's a year?
And that's a year, and he had like hundreds of hives.
Wow.
So you can get that much more or less. So it really all depends on your area and what it can sustain.
But
Pollination.
But you also mentioned it really depends upon what is available.
Correct.
The kind of plants.
Correct.
And in Gahanna, is there a lot of wilderness that the bees go out, or is it primarily what people are growing in the yards?
Both. We live close to a more rural area. Bees can travel about 3 miles during their foraging, and so there is a lot naturally around, but there are kind of these dead zones for bees, and there is an organization called the Ohio Prairie Nursery, and I have the names of a few seed packets, and I believe I have their logo on there. But they have come up with very specific seed packages that people can plant to increase pollinator, an oasis for pollinators, not just the honeybee, but the native pollinators around, just to kind of help that. Because what's happening also, which goes along to the decline of honeybee populations, is all of these monocultures, huge fields of just one crop, though good for the agriculture industry, is not necessarily really great for pollinators. So if you even have a strip of land that you can just let go, and you can plant some of these seed packs to help that.
So if Jason wanted to have a couple swarms of bees, what would he plant to sort of attract those?
I would encourage to go to their website, the Ohio Prairie Nursery's website. But cone flowers are really good.
Cone flowers.
So echinacea, those very common. Very tall, big head to them.
Huh.
My trick that I have found is if I go to a nursery and I just walk and just pay attention to where all the pollinators are going, I buy those plants.
Huh.
So I went, we have
that's a good
Oakland
idea.
Nursery in Columbus, and I wanted a couple hydrangeas. Well, 9 out of the 10 hydrangea, not breeds, but cultivars didn't have any bees on them, but there was a one called Quickfire that there were flies and wasps and all these little bees and insects I had never seen, and honeybees, and so we planted those in the front, and my family's like, these things are alive with insects. So that'd be my tip, because there's a laundry list of plants, both trees and bushes and whatnot.
Now, the different plants that they're feeding off of, does that affect the flavor of the honey?
Yes. So there's a whole industry of transporting bees to whatever is blooming. So like the almond fields in California and orange groves. So it does affect. So if you go to the store and you see orange blossom honey, that means that those hives were in an orange field with a big enough radius that they can say, yes, these were orange blossoms. There's blueberry honey. Most of the stuff that you see in the store would be clover. This would be considered wildflower because who knows really what they went to. And the flavor also changes depending on whatever season it is. So typically spring honey is lighter in color, fall honey is a little darker.
You brought some pictures.
Yes.
You want to go through a
Sure.
few of the pictures?
I guess go to the first one. I didn't know this when I first started, but there's a lot of different breeds of honeybee.
Wow. And you said we started out with the Italian?
With the Italian.
Okay.
That's the Italian and the Carniolan, the third one from the left. And
Okay.
the Russian are kind of the most used in Ohio. The Italian is by far. And this is kind of just a little matrix of different qualities of each bee.
Huh.
So if you look on the left, there's the African bee, which has
famous.
the infamous, which was a science experiment gone right and wrong when it was let out of an apiary in, I think it was Brazil, by accident, and it's just kind of caused havoc. But as you can see, their honey collection is a 10. So they're really great honey producers, but they don't winter well, so they won't survive Ohio winters. And their defense,
So that's good.
That's
good.
good for us. Bad for them. And their defensive behavior, as you can see, is a 10, so that's bad. But as you go across the way, like the Italian, that defensive behavior is a 2, and they winter
see.
well here. So those are all the different kind.
The amazing thing is there's different colored.
Yes.
I thought they were all the same.
Yeah, so Russians are darker, Carniolan are darker. And then if we want to go to the next one,
That's interesting.
this is a swarm. So with such a mild winter this year, a lot of people were calling local beekeepers to
And
capture
you?
swarms.
And me, yeah.
To capture swarms, and this is just that word has a negative connotation, but a swarm is a natural multiplication of a hive. So the queen leaves with half of the bees, and they try to find a new home because the previous home was getting overcrowded, and they're actually at the most docile here. If we want to go to the next one,
Now, why would they be docile?
they have nothing to defend. They're just kind of looking around.
Oh.
I've captured swarms in a t-shirt and shorts.
Really?
Yeah. So you can acquire bees by a swarm, or you can purchase packaged bees. And these are 2 packages I got last year. And so there's a queen
Where
in
did
there.
where did you acquire the beads from?
There is a gentleman in Canal, Winchester, near Columbus, that actually goes down to Georgia and brings
Oh.
thousands of these back to help local beekeepers with the population. You want to go to the next one? This was a swarm that landed in a little maple tree in our yard that we had just planted the year before. And this is a swarm from one of my hives. And luckily it was at ground level, so I just had to kind of shake it out of the tree.
You know, when you say shake it, you
I
literally just
shook it, and I wasn't wearing any suit. I was just wearing jeans or shorts and a t-shirt, and I shook them, and I was fine.
and shaking them. What?
That knocks them off the tree, because when you get a swarm, you want to make sure you capture the queen,
Oh, okay.
and then they will go with where the queen
Okay.
is. Speaking of queens,
Now these are blue.
that's just because of the lighting.
Oh, okay.
Those
All
are
right.
clear wings.
Okay.
But the sky was very blue.
Huh.
That little weird peanut-shaped thing at the bottom, that's a queen cell. And all of the other cells, at the bee's discretion, can be filled with whatever. They can be filled with, other baby bees or honey or pollen.
So when the queen lays the larvae, one of the worker bees takes that larvae and puts it in one of those honeycomb cells.
The queen will lay directly in the honeycomb cells.
Oh, so she moves from.
Yeah, she will wander all throughout the hive, and
I didn't know that.
she'll lay about 1,500 eggs
1,500. Wow,
a day.
what a mother!
She is. This is a captured swarm. That's a bucket from Lowe's. So you can just kind of either cut off the branch that it's on and put the bees directly in very gently. And then you can just move that into a box. And then
That's interesting.
they'll take up residence and start bringing pollen and nectar in, and all is well.
And so what gets them upset to where they would sting you?
When you go into the hive, they don't usually, well, that depends on the temperament of the hive. I have 4 hives in my backyard right now, and every one of them, like a different child, has a completely different temperament.
Oh, really?
I could go into one, I took actually a frame covered with bees inside my house, so my 5-year-old could see it. But 2 hives over, I opened that up, and I had to be in a full suit, or I would have had like hundreds of stings.
Huh.
So it's really kind of all genetics and temperament of the hive.
Now,
So-
do you have a different queen in each hive?
Yes.
Okay.
There's one queen per hive, and a mature hive can have up to 60,000 or more worker bees, and then about 15% of that are drones, which are the males.
And how long does a worker bee live? For a couple of years?
So no, if a worker bee is alive during prime foraging time, like now or April, they only live about 30 or 40 days.
Really?
Because the more bees work, the sooner they die. But a bee that's laid in the fall doesn't have much, and that can actually overwinter and live for a few months. So it depends on how much work they do. Queen bees can live 2 to 5 years.
And how long about drones?
Drones will unfortunately get kicked. Well, when they mate, they die. And most of the hives will kick out drones in the winter because all they do is eat the honey.
Huh. So they don't go.
They don't have, besides mating, which is very important it's for genetic diversity, they have no responsibility. So they will get kicked out. So the hive can conserve honey for the winter.
That's interesting.
That is a drone. It's the male bee. Drones cannot sting, so my kids play with them.
Huh.
Freaks out my wife, but bring them into the house. Here, kids, here's drones. So they have huge eyes, and then when they mate, they die because it pulls out their insides.
Oh,
Isn't
okay.
that lovely?
Okay.
Here are eggs. So the queen will go around and deposit an egg into each cell, and then they will turn into larvae. And when at the very bottom right, when they get to a certain age, they'll get capped and they'll finish their development.
And then they eat their way out.
And then they eat their way out. This is a queen from one of my hives. So bigger body and usually a different color.
Wow.
That's the solid one in the center?
Yes, that.
Okay. It's a reddish.
Yes, that reddish color. This is another frame for my hive. This is all capped brood. So baby bees are inside of there. And the other bees are keeping that frame warm for them. And this is just a close-up of honeycomb. This is an interesting slide just because the top of the frame is capped honey, which means that the hive has flapped their wings and dehydrated that nectar, so it's 18% moisture content. And as you go down, you can see those partially capped.
Oh, I
so
see.
as they flap their wings and kind of air condition the hive and dehydrate the nectar, they'll cap it.
Interesting.
And those are the pollen sacs, and their legs just have kind of barbs on them. And they'll go and collect pollen, bring it back to the hive, and then they'll pack that into cells. Another random picture of a queen. But the queen definitely sticks out when you're looking for her. And then just another picture of the hive. That is a healthy hive. You want to see this frame's covered with bees.
Huh.
And then here was the Ohio Prairie Nursery, which I would recommend. There's a lot of, the OSU Bee Lab has a lot of resources as well as plants to get involved with. But it's a very rewarding hobby.
Yeah, it very much is. We'd love to have you back, and maybe you
definitely.
can talk a great deal more about bees. So you're going to get some hives?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
I don't have the time. It seems rather labor intensive.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, because then, you get into business making honey.
You gotta come over and take care of all the other stuff I do, Pat.
No problem. You wanted me to bring home some goats.
Oh,
so-
fantastic.
Well, Kevin, it has been a pleasure having you on the
Thank you
program.
very much.
And thank you very much for coming on the show. Jason, any final words of wisdom?
No, I really appreciate Kevin coming in and sharing with us. It's very informative.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
interesting.
I could. There's so much with bees.
Yes. Yes.
And the saying is, if you ask an opinion of 3 beekeepers, you'll get at least 4 answers. So it's still a field that is being researched. So.
I understand. I'm Patrick.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Kevin.
Thank you for listening.